So happy holiday season. New Year's, Christmas, all of the shenanigans this time of year. Hopefully you all had a nice time. I got some stuff for my Warhammer hobby, and I got some fun little nifty electronics gadgets, and I got a new keyboard, which should make streaming just that much more enjoyable. It's made gameplay just that much more enjoyable. It feels really responsive. It feels good. It looks good because I got a Razer Black Widow Elite, so it's very shiny and new. That was my big gift, and it the LEDs do the same stuff as I already had a Razer mouse, so they kind of like wave across each other. It's very, very cool. Let's talk about, first of all, how last week went, and then some changes kind of moving forward. First of all, my leveling went great. I actually leveled faster than expected. I got to, I think, 61 on Dark Knight, and I got to 35 on Death Knight. So the goal this week would be to get them into current expansion. So that would be 50 plus scenario for Death Knight, and I'm actually going to go for 71 on Dark Knight because Boj is kind of the leveling accepted content, one of the forms of leveling in current content, and I would like to have all of the forms of leveling, and since it requires 71, not 70, that's the goal. That no longer makes them kind of the slow pokes in the room. That starts to put them dangerously close to the other ones. For example, I would then have Paladin as my lowest over in WoW at 35. It would be the last and final tank to hit 50, the cap prior to current content. So I'd like to go ahead, and if at some point in the next 7 to 14 days, I'd like to start getting any tanks that have not done their scenario to get to Arabos out of the way, and then start prepping for Paladin. That way all of my tanks will be in current expansion of WoW, and in Final Fantasy, my Paladin is like 77, so I'd like to go ahead and finish it up and get its relic, and then that way that's all kind of cleared up. I'm getting closer and closer every week to having my full 510 tanking set. So once I have all of their relics and all 510, I'm kind of done on tanks. Like, unless I want to go start grinding Savage, Extreme, things like that, I'm really in a pretty good spot on them. So what I would probably do is start leveling professions. My professions are all of my crafters are at least 60, but I don't have any at 80. I really haven't engaged this expansion. It just hasn't struck out to me, so that it would be time to start doing that for the Last of Ishgard. I've been really excited for what Ishgard means for the community, but when you overlay it with everything I've wanted to play this year, and everything that's changed within crafting, it just hasn't been something that I felt drawn to. I've touched it briefly here and there, and my gather is all at cap, so it was really easy to kind of engage in the social aspect, especially early on when going and gathering those Ishgardian mats was crazy profitable. And speaking of profitable, let's talk about money. So my goal in Final Fantasy every week is 500 to a million, and then my minimum for total listing post went from 100 the week before to 500 last week. This week I've moved it all the way to 1,000. So I should start seeing some real income come in now that all 80 of my retainer selling slots are at 1,000 or more total stack price, which means if I have a lot of something, it doesn't have to be worth as much. But those odds and ends that kind of show up from things like descent and all of that, they really have to start carrying some weight on their own, or they get tossed in the bin. So I'm excited about that, to kind of be able to trash more items. I made right under 800K this week, so definitely not the million stretch goal, but considering I'm not really doing any intentional item generation or any intentional market research, I'm just clearing inventory, it's really exciting to see it start to easily clear that 500 every week. Over in WoW, I got involved in a lot of flipping in the last week. I found it really soothing to go in and buy something up. And where I found my server has a lot of room to flip is Shrouded Cloth. Shrouded Cloth is the cloth of the current expansion, and it is incredibly volatile. The lightless silk, the rare cloth of this expansion, is much more stable on my server, and so the lesser cloth just seems to jump up and down and up and down. I've found that there was a price point where below that I can not only shuffle it into enchanting mats, but I can actually vendor shuffle it, which means I can craft Shrouded Cloth capes for a lower cost than they vendor, which allows me to start cranking through it very, very quickly. I can go through about 7,000 of it per hour. That sounds like a lot. I kind of set my price and said, okay, it's profitable at a rate I'm comfortable with as long as it's at or below this price. I've been buying it up anywhere below there. So my average is way, way below because, right, that's the top of my price point. But then that means sometimes I'm able to grab stuff that's literally less than half because it's just tanking hard sometimes. And then it'll spike back up. And so I've been selling it a little when it spikes, and I've been buying it up when it tanks, and that all felt really good. And my gold per day, my income has been skyrocketing. I was up to where I'm making like 40K a day. Awesome. Very, very cool. And then I started making more than 40,000 gold a day. That sounds great. My goal over there is only 250,000 a week. 44,000 sounds awesome. And that's when I realized on the WoW side of things, we're going to have to start tracking profit, not sales. Because when you get into flipping, when you're flipping for narrow margin, it inflates your expenses number and it inflates your sales number. And really what you're keeping is just that sliver. And so I've got to start tracking profit because my expenses per day very quickly went from that 18 to 20 up to almost 30,000 per day. So this week I made a good chunk. I made like 150,000, I think, in sales, 160,000 in sales, but then I was making more money over on my vendor tune, and those don't get tracked because they don't come in my mailbox clearing. And so I was only making like 10,000 a day. So I've been selling off. I've been pushing through my vendor stuff. I'm up to about 17,000 a day. And the problem with this is like I'm hovering right around that 720,000 gold point. Occasionally I have to buy a penumbra thread, and until I flip it, it'll plummet just below 700. And sadly, that puts me just below the gold I had 2 weeks ago. So I really need to get this cleared. And the reason for that is that on my person, I've got it open in front of me so I can read this off. The exact amount of cloth I have at this exact moment, liquid cloth in my possession, is 216,343. So the problem there is that like, that's easily $250,000 gold worth of cloth. Easily, like vendored. By the time I crank it into capes and vendor it, that's easily $250,000 gold. So I really need to get that turned over to get access to what my total liquid gold amount is. So I'm going to do that by starting to drive my profit per day in WoW rather than total gold per week. In 14, my expenses is so low and so rare. Occasionally I'll buy one expensive item or a lot of little items. Until I start leveling crafters, I'm not really worried about profit per week. I'm just worried about total gil made. I'm up to about 8.5 million gil. So I'm getting back to where we almost have that other digit that makes things comfortable. So I'm fine with making next week's goal that same 500,000 to $1 million. We're not moved into professions yet, so 500,000 to $1 million is a great price for me just dumping all those odds and ends out of my retainers and my Chocobo saddlebag and all of that. But in WoW, my goal is 20,000 profit as my average profit per day. That actually is going to drop my gold target to really only 140,000 next week, but that's 140,000 that I get to keep. That's 140,000 that's mine. And from there, we may try to up that week over week. But I think 140,000 means I'm making at least a WoW token every single week. More, really, because I think they're hovering around 110 right now. So it's 20,000 per day. Sounds like a nice round number. I'm at 16.8 at this exact moment. So it should be easy to kind of just pump those numbers up, those rookie numbers there. And so that's kind of my goal. I'm still not planning on really diving into any other games. I've been playing Elite Dangerous with my brothers. I've been doing some Warhammer stuff. I've been playing some Call of Duty. But I'm not going to go touch Cyberpunk yet. It still doesn't sound like it's quite the bug-free experience that I really want it to be. I really want it to be not just a tolerable, not just a good experience, but a pristine experience. We've waited through delay after delay after delay until I got to the point where it just felt exhausting to hear, oh, the date moved. And so at this point, like, what's another month? What's another 2 months? It doesn't matter. It's a single player experience. I'm not falling behind people. It seems like people are starting to finish up. I'm not really looking too much into the news because I don't want spoilers, but it does seem like people are starting to finish up at least initial playthroughs. So I assume that means okay, that means it's stable enough to get to an initial playthrough. So it's getting closer to maybe I'll get to play Cyberpunk. And then I've been watching some other MMOs, so it's interesting to think that if WoW or 14 kind of hits a lull as we go into next summer, there are other MMOs on the horizon that might be worth jumping into. As far as streaming schedule this week, we had our community stream. Thank you guys so much. The channel points over there, you guys actually made that happen. Brian and I dual streamed on Christmas Day. It was an evening stream, which was an atypical time slot for us. We had a lot of fun with you. It was just fun to hang out. We went and did Boja. We had a critical engagement where there were only 5 of us in the instance, and we all got in it and we cleared it. So talk about critical engagement savage. That was really nuts. And I think that I'm going to use the dual stream layout to maybe more show WoW and 14 at the same time. Test out maybe not having my stream be so fragmented where there's a 14 section and a WoW section. But my plan this week is to continue streaming. So we will stream at 8 a.m. Central Monday through Friday, and then we'll stream till the goal is done. This Wednesday, my family is talking about kind of having some sort of at least a Zoom related thing, something in the afternoon. So I may have to cut that early. We really haven't gotten to do very much together. And then they talked about at some point kind of renting out a theater. So I may pop over and go sit far apart from my brothers in a theater and see Monster Hunter. So I don't know what day that'll fall in the time slot exactly, but outside of those two things, I really don't have anything this week that would stop me from streaming. Everything else going on in my life can move around, and streaming can be the 8 a.m. to kind of afternoon time slot. They've been historically ending around 2 p.m. Central, and it's a huge thanks to you guys kind of coming and hanging out. As far as YouTube, Brian and I are collabing when he has time. Obviously, his life is hectic right now, so it's just when he has time. We are working on bringing the podcast back next year. So as we look at what 2021 will bring, we are looking at kind of some options there. We're still talking about that, so nothing formally enough that I can kind of put it out there. I'm working on some projects that'll take place either here or on one of, I don't know, something outside of Work to Games that I'm not slamming that feed with, just kind of some personal projects that I'm really interested in trying. Here on this channel, I will probably just keep tackling these kind of conversational topics where I start down a simple comment or question thread that I see in stream, or you guys comment here on the channel or something like that. So I've been having fun with those. I need to somehow pick smaller topics. It feels like I'm isolating on like one core sentence, and then these posts have been like 20 or 30 minutes long. So I need to start kind of really honing down to what I feel like, well, that's only like 2 minutes. And then I probably still talk way too long. So hopefully you guys have been enjoying these kind of comparing experiences between WoW and 14, these kind of translations where I talk about two games that I happen to know a fair bit about. As I watched I was watching JCat play some ESO this week, which I played on launch, but I haven't really touched since. It just reminds me like how little I know about that game versus I can talk about these two until I'm blue in the face, comparing how they've handled things in the past, how they're handling things currently, and what it looks like they're doing moving forward. And what it really means for new players, because when you play one game in a genre, you actually have a lot of the knowledge for the other games. It's mostly about just understanding what's parallel and what's really different. And so in 14 and WoW, they're shockingly similar games at a core level, at a core mechanical structural level. They're shockingly similar. So if you want to make the jump and experience just the things that are different, you mostly need to have that footing in what's the same so that you know that's your jumping off point to explore where they may have done things that are very, very different. Yeah, that's my plan. I've got to get to shuffling because even at like 7,000 cloth per hour, 200,000 cloth is a problem. So the dual stream may allow me to kind of level stuff in 14 while I kind of crank through just vendoring things. Hopefully you guys can come hang out with me over on stream, Work to Game with the number 2. And then keep an eye out for posts. I'm going to be trying to post on this channel ideally 5 times a week. That's the target. So hopefully you guys enjoy those. Your feedback is really appreciated. Thank you so much. I will see you in stream or here in the next post where I talk about something related to gaming. It's just about gaming, kinda. Take care.